There you are, Mark.
Hey, Kevin.
I hear we're talking hardscaping, huh?
So that's what we have in front of us for sure.
All right.
So what you're looking at is traditional brick, okay, and traditional patterns.
Okay.
This is a molded brick, which is very, very typical back in the day.
So literally it is put in a mold, fired, baked, dried, all that stuff.
All that stuff. But this is what we call a running bond pattern. So you can see it going back and forth. It does over here as well, but this goes the long way and not the short way.
Wait, so let me just make sure I got that straight.
Sure.
If we've got a walkway with a left and a right side, you're telling me this goes back and forth this
Yes.
way, whereas our left and right side is here, so these run the length.
Exactly. And by the way, this is my favorite because usually walkways are long, and this gives me that linear feeling.
Right.
Yep. This is the same pattern, running bond pattern, but set at a diagonal, usually used for patios. Over here, if you want to spend a couple bucks, we have a herringbone pattern.
And is this a couple bucks more because a complicated layout, or because you end up with a lot of cut brick and waste, or both?
So you do have the most cuts out of a herringbone pattern, but if you do set everything correctly and make it straight and take your measurements off the center, you're going to have less cuts.
Nice.
All right?
All right.
Over to my right is what we call a basket weave pattern. Very, very simple, no cuts at all with this one, and you can see the simplicity, 2 by 2 by 2 by 2.
Okay, so these are patterns.
Yep.
We can choose different materials.
Right.
And you'll help me out here.
Sure.
This looks like a traditional brick,
Yes?
and this does not.
Okay. So this is a traditional brick. It's actually everything you see on your feet in Boston. That's why they call this a City Hall paver. It's not a brand name, but it's a nickname.
Yep.
This is more of what they consider a paver. This you can see is a little shorter and it's not as wide as this.
Also bigger by design?
Yes, so that is by design. True brick paver is 4 inches by 8 inches.
And in here, the other thing that I'm seeing with the pavers at least is colors.
Right, so this is what we call a color range. You can see that the reds are mixed in with the browns.
Did you buy a palette of all this color and all this color, mix them, or does a palette come mixed?
Comes mixed.
It does?
Yep.
Oh, nice. The other thing that I'm noticing is texture, right?
Right.
Which is pretty distinctive right there.
Exactly, so this is what we call a matte finish, and all that means is you get a good grip on your foot.
All right. When you said pavers, I get it
Yep.
with brick.
Right.
The size, the sharp edges, but I also was thinking, when I heard pavers, I often think of like concrete.
So that's a whole new thing, and that's right over there.
Let's check that out.
All right.
All right, there they are.
All right.
That's what I'm thinking with pavers.
Exactly.
Concrete, right?
Yes, so this is the modern paver. You can see the variation not only in size, shape, but color.
Color as well.
Yep.
And so I presume, since it's concrete, we're talking the color comes from dye.
Yep.
So you got the lights, you got the reds, you got the darks, love that. Paver, so we got the crisp edges,
Correct?
but also the nubs along the side.
Right, so one of my favorite characteristics of these pavers is that nub. We're gonna bring the pavers together until the nubs hit, and that's gonna allow a nice gap for the polymetric sand to sink down and hit the bottom.
Nice feature. So that
Sure.
speeds up your installation, I
Sure
presume?
does, yeah.
That's really good. Okay. And so different sizes, price-wise, these are the least expensive options?
Least expensive option, once you start a pattern, you pick a pattern and you go with that pattern, it's just rinse and repeat.
Yep.
After that, so once you get going, you're on a roll. The material is a lot cheaper.
Yep. So any downsides?
The downside to me is always the color fade.
Oh,
So
really?
after a few years, you can see how bright this one is right now, but after a few years, that's gonna fade.
So 2 years from now, you're not going to be looking at that red.
Right,
Oh, that's a bummer.
very dull, yeah.
All right. And in the winter, if I've got ice, what happens if I throw salt down on these things?
So as soon as you throw salt down on these, they're gonna start to degrade.
So if I, in the winter, am putting this stuff down to keep the ice off, I'm going to end up damaging this stuff.
Exactly, so during installation, make sure you have a good pitch on both sides,
So that everything runs off.
so everything runs off.
Okay.
All
good.
right.
Concrete pavers. Ooh.
Yes.
Ooh. Now we're into naturals.
Here we come with some of the fancy stuff.
So this is a paver, right?
So patios, walkways, all can be done with different materials. This happens to be bluestone. They come in different sizes, so you can use different patterns.
Right. Natural materials, so this is coming out of a quarry.
That's right. So it's quarried, comes out in a block. They shave the block down, and they'll give you these different sizes that you see.
So you get a nice smooth cut on the sides. You get the thickness that you want.
Correct?
But on the face, you get that sort of beautiful, irregular, natural look.
That's right. And skid resistant as well.
And I presume more expensive than concrete because that's the most affordable.
That's right. So if you want to spend some money, you're going to get the Bluestone or that granite.
So this is nice too.
Right.
So, wow, look at that. Again, natural material.
Yep. So this is actually quarried locally. It's what we call a Chelmsford granite. That's a salt and pepper right there. So, and you can see nice skid resistant surface as well.
And is this sort of as durable in your mind as the Bluestone?
Exactly, if not more so.
Yep. Price-wise, comparing?
They're comparable, but you probably spend another $1 for that.
Oh,
Yep.
okay, right, nice. So if I'm thinking of doing a patio myself and I need to order this, what do I tell them? Like, how am I telling quantity? Because that I kind of get, everything's the same, but with different sizes, like.
Right. So square footage is what you give them, which is width and length.
I got 10 by 15, that's 150 square feet.
Yep.
Is that what I tell them?
That's what you tell them. I actually add 2% on top of that for waste. If I find a piece that has a little bit more of a cleft than I like, I'll throw it out, get another piece. So that's why I go 2%.
And if I say 150 square feet, are they going to figure out, how many bigs, how many littles, so that it adds up to that?
They do. It's well thought out, and again, it's a pattern, but you won't pick the pattern up when you put it down. So square foot already have that figured in.
All right. Well, I'm going to add 10%, given the way I work.
Well, you do you.
Okay. All right, Mark. Thank you. Pavers
All right.
101.
You
Good
got it,
info.
Kevin.
Thanks for watching. This Old House has got a video for just about every home improvement project, so be sure to check out the others. And if you like what you see, click on the subscribe button to make sure that you get our newest videos right in your feed.